Good morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock. We will begin well, according to the clerk, it just now turned 9 o'clock, according to mine. But this is our workshop we've scheduled for this morning. Would you mind giving us a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
This is a public workshop of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners this 12th day of July, 2022. In attendance are Chairman Ronald E. Kitchen, Jr., First Vice Chair Ruthie Schlebas, Second Vice Chair Holly Davis, and Commissioner Jeff Kennard, County Administrator Randy Oliver, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamond-Lynn.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Oliver, want to kick us off here?
Okay, we'll start, if we may, with the boat launch, and if we
Okay.
can get this, the PowerPoint up there, okay? The board implemented the boat launch fees, and as a result of that, they approved certain items that that those funds could be used for, and they're somewhat restrictive. Primarily, they're for repair and maintenance of the existing boat launches, to expand boat launches, and also to expand parking, and those are the limitations that. Yeah, okay. Look at it right here. I can see this one better. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So, this was based on the February 9th meeting. The board approved the collection of boat launch fees at four of the county boat ramps: Fort Island Gulf Beach, Fort Island Trail Park, McRae's of Homosassa, and Hernando Beach. Premium parking was selected to manage the program. There were, as you're aware, some bumps, but it seems like things have pretty well worked out, and we went live. We didn't start collecting until January. So we've got a 5 months history. I don't think we've gotten the 6th month in yet. I would expect during scallop season that those numbers would increase significantly. How much, I'm not sure yet. Until we get a year's worth of collections, we're not going to have a good idea what those revenues really are. We made some estimates based upon what Hernando was doing. Next slide. The approved launch fees were $10 daily. Annual passes for county residents were $25, non-residents $75, and fees are kept in a special revenue fund, which we're posting to the website. We're posting expenses and revenues on that website to show everybody how we are using those funds. The next slide shows the budget. We anticipated $40,000. We're required by law to set aside 5% for variations that we may have, and then the expenses are listed at the bottom.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
The budget, was that based on a full fiscal year, or was that based on a shorter than that?
No, it was really based on a full fiscal year.
So we're 5 months in, or 5 months of figures at 134 based against a budget of 380, right, for a year. So that sounds to me like, real quick number says that's pretty close for being the first year where we thought we may end up.
Yeah, well, I believe that the collections are going to balloon a bit during scallop season. How much, I don't know yet.
Yeah, I guess my point was the 400,000 I thought was very conservative. So if I think if these numbers hold, that may prove to be true.
So, but we'll have a better handle once we get through it. But we need a year's worth of history to give a good indication. The installation of some power poles to accommodate the technology that we're using is on the next slide. And then the point of the workshop today was to get more direction on what you want to do with the funds. The one thing I would add is we get about $80,000 per year. A lot of people think we get all of the boater registration fees. We only get about $80,000 a year in boater registration fees, which is not a whole lot. But some of the things that we've noted that need to be done is the Hernando boat ramp, 3 docks that they're riding footers, and that needs to be replaced. Our estimate's about $65,000. The Turner Camp boat ramp dock leading to the boat ramp has severe wood rotting underneath, $40,000. The board previously mentioned additional parking at the boat ramp. There was also discussion in partnership with Crystal River of a new boat ramp at the Fort Island Trail Park. As you know, we're getting ready to bid and should be on the street shortly. The Barge Canal boat ramp, we don't know what that's going to come in, but costs have escalated. And then Fort Island parking and boat ramp. So what we're asking to have some discussion and some input on today is how you all would like to see these funds expended to benefit the community.
Thanks, sir. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Commissioner Kennard.
I will go ahead and step out there a little bit on this. I would like to see these funds used in a similar manner that our impact fees are used. That these fees collected should be used to expand capacity, routine maintenance, things that have normally been done or normally been funded out of boater registration fees. I'd like to see those continued funded out of that. But these new fees that are being collected, the way that it was advertised, and I would like to see the road that we continue to go down, is that this is for capacity, increasing capacity, whether it's ultimately buying adjacent parcels or parcels in the close proximity to ramps to add additional parking, or as Ken Frank had proposed, was that this year? It's all going fast now, but I think it was earlier this year. Last year, he'd proposed some significant changes at Fort Island Trail Ramp that, given his background, his time that he spent at Swiftmud, he believes that it's a very doable project. And with some significant grant funding from the state, there would be some county match required, but he believes there is a pretty major project can be done at Fort Island Trail, the halfway ramp there, to increase parking, possibly add an additional slip there for launching. That's going to be a big nut to crack if and when that project comes to fruition. And I'd like to see us have the funds to be able to say, all right, we collected these funds, this is what we're going to do with them this time. This is the major project that's going to happen, and then you start saving for the next major project. If I may, I will tell you, over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to launch out of Cedar Key and do some fishing out of there. They don't have any kind of annual pass that I could see. You put your card in, you get a ticket, and throw it in your windshield. It's $16 per person, whether you're a resident of the county. Every single launch, every single vehicle to park. We had 4 vehicles at $16 a pop, 2 different times up there, and nobody blinked. It was, hey, everybody's excited to get in the boat, and they've got a beautiful ramp there, but the parking is very limited. Once the parking is full, there are people parking on the streets and such, but they also have a lot that is, I don't know, maybe 2-3 blocks over. If you're familiar with downtown Cedar Key, down there by Tony's, their clam chowder place, the city has a lot down there that's a gravel lot for additional parking. But it is, I saved the ticket to bring it in, but it says specifically on the ticket that it's a launch fee for $16, and then you can park your vehicle or your vehicle and trailer there in the lot, or you can drive it down to the lot that's 3 blocks over. And so the reason I say all this is that eventually there will be lots that come available. There will be parcels that will come available. They may not necessarily be abutting lots to existing parking, but those would be opportunities that the county could move in and purchase those properties using these dollars to expand parking as our county grows.
Very good. Anyone else?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
I absolutely 100% agree with everything you said. I was on the same track already with the, using the boater ramp fees for expansion of resources, much like impact fees, had not considered the whole parking aspect. That is a really smart idea because especially with the Cedar Key funds, as you said, that'll end up bringing in more money so we can continue to improve and expand our assets in that area. So good. I knew we were going to get good thinking out of you on this.
It's the coffee.
That's it.
That's it. Commissioner Slaybaugh?
Thank you. The only thing I have is, we estimated $400,000, and I guess scallop season might be a little bit more, but my calculations is with the route we're going, we're at $324,000 projected for the year.
Well, I think that scallop season will definitely inflate those numbers. The question's how much.
Okay. That's the only thing I saw that I'm hoping that we get to the benchmark of the 400,000. I am just curious when we expand to other boat ramps and what our plan is for that.
Well, here's what your ordinance says. Projects and improvements could include, but are not limited to, parking expansion, replacement of wooden docks and pilings with aluminum, concrete, or composite materials, installation of tether ramp, development of canoe and kayak launch, improvements to amenities such as restroom, development of new county boat ramps. That's what the ordinance provides for.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with the wording in the ordinance. I know that it allows for those different things, but as long as we have got the we've got the $80,000 in revenue, or roughly $80,000 in revenue coming from the boater registration fees, and it looks like the balance of that account is $380,000. I know we've got issues up at the barge canal because of the increased cost of construction, but if we can utilize those registration fees again for the routine maintenance or replacement of docks, pilings, things like that, I would really like to see the focus of the expenditures for these new launch fees for expanding capacity.
So
Comments? Yes, sir.
consequently, is the consensus of the board then to bank this money until there's more money available to do bigger and more comprehensive projects?
As usual, you read my mind. That's exactly the question I was going to. I know Commissioner Kennard and I had this discussion in the past, and I concur with what Commissioner Kennard is saying. The question is going to be as a matter of discipline. You know, we have $91,000 in the bank now, right? So when folks come up and say, well, Turner Camp Road needs $40,000 for this, and so needs $20,000 for that, the first thing is going to be identified as, well, this fund for those fees. And we've talked about this before, and again, this is going to be more of a long-term thing, but I think this is the policy that needs to be looked at. And that is, if the first thing, as you proposed, would come up would be $500,000, is the concept that we continue to bank this money until we get to such a point, because you know what we're going to start hearing from people is saying, how come this, when we're paying all these boat ramp fees, how come you're not spending any of it? And I guess that's where the political intestinal fortitude is going to have to come in to stick
Right.
with, because you know what happens in the past is the people that come up and start demanding this stuff, boards have a tendency to start spending on things like that and then saying, well, that's what we collected for. So I truly appreciate what you're saying. This is what we said we were going to use it for. That's what we should stick to. So that is what you're saying. In other words, the $40,000, these other things that are out there, $65,000 for the Hernando boat ramp and so on, that you're proposing would come out of the maintenance budget, and that this should go towards capital expansion as you outlined.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I'd like to see us do with the money, and I think provided that he comes back with it and the city is still willing to partner with us, which I have no reason to believe that they're not, if this Fort Island Trail boat ramp project comes to fruition, we're going to have something very, very quickly to point to and say, this is where the money went this time. That will be, depending on what those revenues are over the course of 2 years, my guess is that one project alone is probably 1 or 2 years worth of ramp fees. Now, that doesn't mean that the Hernando docks have to wait. We've got the money sitting there. Let's spend it. Let's get those repaired. Let's use that money that's in the account to make the necessary repairs. Even on these ramps that we're not charging to use, the maintenance needs to come from those revenues. But these bigger projects that we need, those should be coming, I think, from these launch fees, possibly some money from TDC for expanding capacity due to the number of tourists that visit, things like that. That's what I'd like to see us use it on.
Okay. But I think TDC is a whole different story, because then again, you're dealing with what the statute allows you to spend it on.
Right.
My only concern was, and I'm just throwing this out because I'm going to be watching from my back porch in the future about these issues, but there was a discussion a while back about enforcement in Homosassa. And, well, we could use money from this fee to give the sheriff money to enforce law enforcement. Well, that would be directly going against what we told the citizens this money would be used for. So that's where we get into mission creep, with we start something and then it turns into something that was not intended to be. So that's why having some institutional knowledge about how we got to this and having somebody in the future to say, no, that's not what this was created for, is going to be important. But I would concur. So I guess to answer your question, Mr. Oliver, I hear consensus to move in that direction from what I've been hearing. So,
Okay, I think we have direction if that's the consensus.
Yeah, and of the
from Commissioner
80,000, you're
Davis
saying
and
we get-
Commissioner Slayball too.
yeah, that's what we're all saying, right?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you all. I do not have a boat, and all three of you do, so.
Yeah, but whether you have a boat or not, you're making these
No,
decisions for
I
all the people in
understand
the
that,
county.
but I like to listen to the experts on things, and this is not my wheelhouse, so.
Well, I will come back and say this. I agree also with Commissioner Kennard. I'm talking to people all the time, and many of them have boats. My son has a boat. Not a single person has had a problem that I've talked to now that the bugs are worked out of the system. And I agree. I think the $25 for a year. I mean, if you can't put 5 gallons of gas in your boat for $25, and you can launch, for a year for that. So I think that's very reasonable. Yes, ma'am.
I have a suggestion on communications for, and Veronica looks up. I think that the whole making sure that there's trust with citizens and that these are gated funds that are, and back to the building up a big kitty to turn around and do something major will take a while. Perhaps we have a page I was just looking on our site, have a page within the boat ramps section that also has a button from the website that has a progress bar, the list of projects that we're saving up for, having monthly updates to how much money has been brought in, and have progress bars as to what we're saving up for. So we can actually say, this is what we're doing. I'm getting nods. Are you already on it? Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
The one thing that flashed in my mind when Commissioner Kennard was speaking is, I might not be a boater, but I am very aware of money, and I agree that I think $25 a year, we're kind of giving it away. And the other thing is, touching what Commissioner Davis said, is I had like that little thermometer, and with where we are on a website, and just we could direct citizens there and say, this is what is our goals for this next year, the next 3 years, and this is how much money we have. And then there can be no, it would be so transparent, it'd be easy for them to understand, and they'll maybe get excited about the goals of where we're going, and they can watch them happen, like you said. So I'm excited about this. I do think that there is a need for expansion of collecting boat ramp fees, which is not a popular thing, but it's a necessary thing. We have to pay to clean up our waters, so we can't give those waters away.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I understand the idea of the progress bars and stuff like that. The only issue that I have with it is right now, we don't necessarily have identified target projects other than big picture stuff. Expanding parking, expanding, additional slips, things like that. So maybe, to your point of better communication is a list of, something on there showing targeted projects or targeted ideas, things like that, that those funds will be used for. I don't know exactly what you would put there other than increasing capacity for launching, for parking, increased convenience in the form of bathrooms at ramps that need bathrooms, where those would be built, stuff like that.
I think, if you did a combination, you could keep it very simple. You could say, this is what we've collected, this is what the costs were so far, this is what I would call retained earnings.
Yeah.
Okay? So the retained earnings now, this is what it's identified for, and this is what we've done. So, we spent for here, they've been small, and identified future projects for retained earnings. That way people know what's out there, like you're saying, don't know what the cost may be yet, but that kind of, you just want to answer questions before they're asked. What have you spent the money on? How much did you bring in? What did it cost us to collect it? What have you spent the money on, and what are you going to do with the rest of it? And I think just by doing that, you answer those 4 big questions for everybody to see. So,
May I?
yes.
To answer your question, it would be essentially this list right now.
Yeah.
For the expansion items, not the maintenance items, and the maintenance probably needs to be covered on on the bottom half of that page, right? So registration fees go to maintenance, and these are the things on our list. So people like to see that what's bothering them is on the list, on our list, right? But above, where the capital improvement, basically, that we're working on, then those items are listed the way they are, and with a line that says, costs have not been determined as yet, and then once we solidify those things, this is easy for me. To massage that communication to make it very clear.
Yeah, I think certainly putting out there those things that are planned to be used, planned to be pursued with these funds is a good idea. But also there's I don't mean this to sound the wrong way, but there is a segment of boaters out there that will never be happy that we're charging to use these ramps.
Of course.
And I understand where they're at with it. We can put page after page after page of information and cost estimates, things like that, on there, and they're still never going to be content with it. There are an overwhelming number of people that I think are fine with it, that get it, and there's a portion of people out there that say you're not charging enough, because I know what it costs to build these things, and we've got a lot of people coming here. We need to be able to charge them more. I hear that message out there too. I'm getting all of it thankfully from the amount of time that we've been able to spend on the water. But getting that list of projects out there, this is the plan for this money. It's not going to repave roads. It's not going to Fort Island Trail bike path. It's not going to. It is going to expand capacity that will make boating in our community more convenient, rather than sitting in line to launch your boat for hours on end, or an hour or two on end, or launching your boat and walking a half a mile or a mile from the parking area. There are projects in the works that will make life better as our county continues to grow.
I agree. You don't pull into a parking meter and then go on the website and say, I wonder what they're using the money from the parking meter for. Most people that,
Yeah.
go to a ramp pay it just like you said. They want to
Yeah.
go out and use it. Tourists pay whatever it costs. You ask a tourist what the tourist tax is for a community, they have no idea. They don't care. They pay what it costs to stay in the hotel or stay in the RV park, So we should be charging what we think it takes to do the job that we need to do, so. Okay, anything else on this?
No.
Anything else? Okay, you got what you need, Mr. Oliver?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll put this one to bed and we'll move on to succession planning.
Okay. As Doug's pulling that up, I'm pleased to report that Mary Jensen is going to be here this afternoon. She's the person that we're asking for confirmation as the Public Works Director. I think that will be a huge step in stabilizing a number of vacancies we've had in Public Works. So, okay. The board asked for a workshop also on succession planning. Succession planning is the mitigating process of preparing for the loss of critical personnel in an organization. Candidly, I think we're pretty well situated in community services. Maricel's done a good job and created a great team there. OMB, I think Colleen's done a great job there. June in Human Resources has a fine staff, and obviously Utilities has a fine staff. One of the things I will say for Utilities, we have five, I believe it's five, it may be four, five professional engineers in Utilities. The county needs to work towards, in the Public Works area, getting that same level of professionalism in there. I know we have, this is an area we need to bolster up our engineering capability, and we have some people over there that, in my opinion, one person in particular that's as good as any engineer I've dealt with. Unfortunately, they're not certified, and other engineers do not accept you as well if you're not certified, but typically don't. But I know we have one person in drop that's over there. When that person leaves, my recommendation is going to be that we hire a PTOE, which is a professional traffic operations engineer. Next slide, Doug.
Randy, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
Given that, and this is certainly way out of my wheelhouse, but given that we have at least one major road project that's coming up in the expansion of 491, would it make sense to start looking for additional personnel, additional engineers, now that may be able to carry some of the load of what we would otherwise contract for on that project, and have them in-house, rather than spending that money on contracted help, so that when this individual does drop, that we've got other personnel there. I don't know if there's overlap there that.
Well, the difficulty is on major engineering projects, we don't have a constant flow of projects.
Okay.
So, for example, on phase one, we did phase one, and then we didn't have anything that was of significance. If you've got a uniform flow of projects, the best thing to do would be staff it with the in-house resources for the constant flow and just contract out for the excess.
Okay.
The problem is we have too many things that go like this. We do all of our, well, we make some arrangements to go outside sometimes. We do all of our road resurfacing inspections in-house, because that happens on a regular basis and it's predictable. The other thing I would caution is that on these big projects, you need somebody that has that big project experience.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a balancing act. It's kind of like, I'm going to oversimplify this a bit. It's kind of like staffing the checkout counters at the grocery store. Sometimes it needs to be higher, sometimes it needs to be lower, but sometimes it's going to back up too.
Thanks.
a number, as you've seen on the national stats, a number of people that are leaving the workforce. They've reached retirement age. They've decided for whatever reason they don't want to do it anymore. So that's an issue. I will say this: engineers are in more so a month or two ago than they are now, and I think you're going to continue to see it diminish. But engineers were at a I mean, you couldn't beg, borrow, or steal to get one almost. They were that much in demand because of all the activity and all of the federal money that was out there for stimulus money. The benefits of succession planning, it makes it so you're proactive versus reactive. In working with departments, I encourage them to, okay, who's your person? If something happens to you, you know, whatever it is, who's your person that's going to take over for you? It reduced recruitment and hiring costs. It assists in selecting and promoting talent, and it supports organizational growth and stability. It demonstrates positivity, improved morale. I always say that our job is to grow the employee, and if they leave the county, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you have encouraged them, because we've only got so many director positions, for example. So if somebody leaves and becomes a director in another place, sure, it's a loss to us, but we're nurturing the employees to make them better. One of the things that I will say, if I can find it real quick, is the finance director turned to this company and said, you know, well, what happens if we train these people and they leave? And the CEO turns to him and says, what happens if we don't and they stay? So I think we need to look at that. Planning needs ahead, assess staff needs, determine future planning of existing employees. We have a list of who's in DROP. DROP is for other people. DROP is a 5-year plan. Once they enter DROP, it's basically like jumping off a diving board. You have to go. You don't have a choice, and you have to sit out at least 1 year before you can do anything else with an FRS employee. Identify staffing needs to serve the growing community. List the key skills, training, and experience needed to fill positions. Update job descriptions to reflect needs. I would also note that we are, I don't know whether it be the next agenda or the following agenda, we are making a recommendation on a classification compensation study which will update job descriptions and determine what the benchmarks are for various salaries. It's my opinion that our brackets are too wide, our bottoms are low, okay, but I think our tops are pretty close to where they should be. But that study will quantify that. The challenge on that is going to be how do you fund it when we get it back. Identify developing leaders. Okay, who within the organization are your go-to people? I mean, I know who our go-to people are. To do that, you would always want, you know, more and more go-to people. And then implement training and education. We've done this over the last 2 years. We're making it so certain positions are required to take certain courses, and we do it. We hired about 2 or 3 years ago. We hired a trainer, and for example, clerical people need to take Microsoft Word training. Other people need to take Excel training. So we're trying to require the training. Sometimes employees don't like it, but it's for their benefit as well as ours, because if you have 100 employees and you get a 1% increase in productivity, that's the same as getting one new employee without having to hire anybody. Okay. Succession planning is a mission. It's not something that happens overnight, so you have to take it slow and methodically. we gotta be careful we don't burn out managers with too much paperwork and substitute temporary backups for key positions. You just don't want to throw somebody in there. It's, as I always tell managers, it's better to hire the right person than to hire the wrong person. Just don't hire anybody to hire them. And as people that work with me know, there's some positions we've had that we searched long and hard to get somebody, but I feel like we've hired, overall pretty good people. Succession plans, just start with simple competencies, create a culture of leadership development, be clear about why succession planning matters. Okay, and we need to think about what we want to do here. Provide financial support for higher education and training. We do some training in-house and have some things that we send people out for. That's an area that probably over time needs to be expanded. Decentralized duties in key supervisory positions through cross-training, understudies, and emphasis. One of the things that in other communities I've been in that works fairly well, but I don't know what the source for getting the people are, is like an apprenticeship type program where you work with a school. I know when I was in Greenville, we got students from Bob Jones University had to do community service for a semester, and they had to do, I think it was 15 hours a week or something. And they were phenomenal. They really were. They did a great job. I know Craig is doing some of that within the fire department. And they create a mentorship program and or a talent exchange program within the organization. So, as I say, the area that we need to bolster up is in public works and obviously in administration, but I've held up on that in light of recruiting for this position. I would also note that I looked at the recruitment profile yesterday, and I will be distributing that probably in the next day or two to see if you all have any comments, and if you don't, then we're going to ask Mr. Slavin to send that out so that the recruitment process can start. So with that, that's just a little background that we have. We're open to any suggestions the board may have and how you think we ought to handle things.
Comments, anyone? I have a couple. I love what you were saying. Do you want it right or do you want it fast? That's something that you always have to consider. And the training thing, my own background, we had a situation where we developed in our irrigation department. When I talk golf course irrigation, you're talking millions of dollars for a golf course to put in an irrigation system. So when we developed that department, we went out and found the absolute best person we could. We trained him. We sent him to every school possible that we could send him to, made sure he was on top of every new development. And he came to me one day in my office with tears in his eyes. And he said, Ron, I got to tell you, I've decided I want to start my own business, and I'm going to be leaving. And I shared his tears, and I said, good for you. We're going to be your #1 customer. You can put us at the top of your list. So instead of turning around and saying, oh, woe is us, we trained somebody and they left us, what I saw is it gave us an absolutely perfect vendor that we could rely on in the future. And I would rather him run his own company and worry about paying his own employees than me worry about that. So it's just one of those examples that if you surround yourself with good people, and I've said this over and over again, in all my years in business, I've always said every one of your employees should feel it's an honor to work for your company. Okay, and you should feel it's an honor to have every one of those employees working for your company. And as long as there's mutual respect, that's what happens. And I think what we're looking at here in Citrus is the same thing. I think Mr. Oliver, in the 8 years I've been here, has established one of the best senior staffs that I've ever seen. And of course, Ms. Lynn, the same thing in the legal department. I mean, we have a top-notch group of people. Sometimes we hear people complaining. I can tell you when I go to places like the TBRPC and places where other staff from other counties interact with our staff, all I ever hear is accolades, how wonderful our staff is, how good they are. We get complaints, it seems, from people. It's just like with the boat ramps, Commissioner Kennard. You get people who complain all the time. We get complaints about people in our building department and this and that. And when I go out to big groundbreaking projects, I remember when they did the one over on 480, and I asked the contractor, I knew I was walking into it, and I said, so tell me about your experience about building in Citrus County. And I was waiting, and he said, we've built all over the state of Florida. It's the best experience we've ever had building a major project anywhere. So, we tend to hear, the people that are complaining about something, and, perhaps they have validity, but when we talk about the overall professionalism of our county and what we portray to other communities, I believe our staff is top-notch. And my position has always been, and I've said this to where you guys know it over and over again, we have 2 employees. It's Mr. Oliver's job to hire the staff. And if the staff is in the right place at the right time and doing the right job, then he's responsible for that. If they are not, then he's responsible for that as well. So that's where I think we get into problems when commissioners try to micromanage staff and get into directing staff, because then how can you hold the administrator responsible when he has now lost control of his staff? So as we move forward and as this board moves forward in the future, I hope everyone keeps that in mind, because the one thing that hasn't been talked about is senior leadership. There's one person that all the employees work for. And so we're in the process of finding that person now. And so if we look back and if we try to do what most people do and look at the history and say, what have we done right over the years? There's things we've done right we can learn from, and we can look and say, what have we done wrong? And we can learn from that as well. So my hope is the board going forward with whoever we select will give their absolute support to the senior leadership, because that, the other thing is all these things are great. Everything Mr. Oliver talked about is great. One thing it doesn't talk about is the detrimental effect it has on our staff when the senior leadership turns over. Okay, in Crystal River, every time there was an election, they fired the city manager. I can tell you what effect that had on senior staff. And projects never got done because they were starting over from square one every day. It's only with stability, and in the case of Crystal River, started with Andy Houston years ago, that they started moving forward and getting things done. So I just point that out to say that we're growing. We have all this in front of us. I think the process we've used in the past is we can learn from, and I appreciate everything Mr. Oliver has done. And I can tell you, in 8 years, I can look at the staff and ask them, how many times have I knocked on your office door? And not a single one of them will raise their hand. Okay? And we know the reason why that. My job is not to be in their office telling them what to do. My job is to be in Randy's office talking to him and hearing what's going on. And every good thing that happens here, I can tell you that the first thing Mr. Oliver does is if I give him a compliment, he immediately compliments the person in that department that's responsible for it and saying that's why it got done the way it did. So a lot of times the public doesn't know that, but it needs to be brought out there that he's assembled a great team, and I hope that the team we have just continues to grow, and in the future the same thing. So that's my editorial comment on where we are and where I hope we go. And anybody else got anything or direction they want to give Mr. Oliver? Yes, Commissioner Kennard. Yes.
For the longest time, I was adamantly, I don't want to say driving it or pushing the issue, but I really wanted to see that assistant county administrator position filled. And in retrospect, probably pushed a little too hard, and we hired too quickly. So I think that once we do find that new administrator, I think that it needs to be made very clear to them that that's a position that we desire to have them fill, but it needs to be somebody that they want to hire and are ready. And I'm not saying that Randy did not, but somebody who they feel would be a loss if we didn't hire type of situation. So that will be a focus of mine when I do have a conversation with the new administrator. I was glad to see that Ms. Lynn was able to get the attorney, our new attorney in-house, and has got the help there that she needs. Look forward to that happening with our next administrator when that happens. So.
Okay. Yeah, I will point out, I met the new attorney, and she said she had been watching county commission meetings, and I said, "You still want to come here?" and she goes, "Absolutely." I go, "Well, there you go. See, we're not as bad as some people would have us believe." So, any other comments from anyone? Well, thank you, Mr. Oliver. You want to give us one more reminder, just a quick rundown where we are and the dates? As I remember talking to Mr. Slavin, the next thing was this marketing piece that you're talking about. What is the timeline then on applications? You recall right off the top of your head?
I don't recall, but I'll get it to you all. My goal is to get that recruitment profile advertised. Let them advertise that this week.
Great. And then I know the end goal was September. We wanted for sure to have the new person in up to speed and running, by September, right?
That's the goal,
what we're
yeah.
still on. Okay,
Yes.
great. Outstanding. Okay. No other comments from the board? No other questions? Thank you, board. Okay, we'll go to open to the public. Does anyone here wish to speak to the board now? And I see we have a brand new state-of-the-art timer here, so we should be able to handle this. If you would, just come up, tell us your name. You have 3 minutes to speak on whatever you'd like, and if you, as this gentleman just did, please fill out a green card before, during, or after you speak. We'd appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Robert Finkelson. Thank you for giving me the option to talk here. I'm a resident of the county. I do use the boat ramps every time of the year and all over. I'm really pleased to hear that you all are going to earmark this money for the ramps, because the first thing I thought of is once you institute a fee, you're providing a product. You provide a product. The customer has certain expectations, and you're looking to meet those. One of the things that really concerns me is the increase. Please, we pay taxes. If it comes to increasing the fees, keep the yearly fee the same for the people local. Raise it for the daily ramp use and for those out of the county, because they're the ones that really are taking us. And it's so crowded. I mean, I don't even use the ramp on the weekend, and a lot of people who live in this county don't. And one of the things, really, you should take a chance to go to maybe Fort Island Trail ramp and just take 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock or in that time. Sit there at the lawn chair and just watch. I've worked those ramps on the weekends. I don't like it. For the most part, people are courteous. They're patient. But that little wire is getting rusty, and as there's more people, more payment going, they're expecting quicker ramps, and the patience have been wearing thin. And I have seen altercations beginning to start there. So there's some consideration should be because of the massive amounts of people that use it. It's incredible. Saturdays and Sundays are chaos that's only held together by people's patience and courtesy. And, some people back up faster than others. Some are slower. And you get people that are cutting people off because they're in a hurry to get into the ramp. So maybe somebody there to direct traffic, to maybe say, hey, hold up, let this guy back in, and, give people a chance to clear the ramps. But, yeah, there's a lot of people there. And I know it's good for the county because it's money coming in from tourists. But, we don't want altercations either. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Go to the next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Ann Finkelson. So I'm just going to expand on.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Ann Finkelson. He's my husband. Anyway, to expand a little bit, I have a few more suggestions on utilizing that money for the same thing. If during the busy days, because the Fort Island Trail, if we can have somebody, maybe one of our volunteers in CERT, to provide a little golf cart service from like Fort Island Trail. Some people have parked as much as a mile away. And we've seen boats sit there for like 15, 20 minutes, and there's other people in line want to take off, but you got to wait because you got to go park your boat. So if maybe we can have some of our county volunteers with a golf cart during these busy days, that'll be great. Also, we need to have a designated area for people to prep their boats. A little pull-off area where you can prep your boat before you launch it. So in the plans when you redo the parking lots. And Fort Island Beach Ramp, that's another ramp that has, you can launch 2 boats at once, but there's only a dock on the left side, which actually should be expanded a little bit more to be able to accommodate another boat on the other side. And also put a floating dock on the right side of the ramp, if you could put that in the plans for future expansion. And that'll also prevent people from possibly running off the edge of the ramp, which I've seen several times. And, well, that's probably about it. You covered just about everything. I was pleased to see where you put the money in, like my husband said. And maybe we can add a nice little touch, maybe add some fish cleaning stations at the ramps once they get established. And I know it's going to take a long time. It's going to take money, and it's going to take time. And I wish you all good luck in your hiring process. We are some of those boomers that retired recently as lead project engineers, and we also had a mentor-mentee program. So I wish you the best of luck at that. It's really hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate your comments. Next speaker.
Richard Hallis. We're going to start with cars parking in the boat spaces on Fort Island. I've seen it myself. I've seen complaints of it. That needs to be addressed. People are using the dumpsters for trash rather than use the dump. You need to have an attendant in these lots to watch over. The cars need security. There have been trailer bunks loosened up by vandals. There should be an attendant on all the ramps. That's the way they do it in other states, and I don't want to bring the north down here, but it's definitely a good thing. Your satellite parking area, that's a great idea, but you're going to add 15 minutes per launch. And if you launch 500 boats out of there like they did over the 4th of July, that's going to tie that ramp up from daylight to dark. Turner Camp and Hernando, are they generating money yet?
We'll go ahead and ask your questions, and we'll have staff answer them.
And if you're going to do a pay-per-use thing, it needs to be limited to the county people. There's no reason for us to pay for a glorious ramp for the people out of Tampa. And the people here use that ramp once a week, twice a week. Some of the guides use it every day. You know, you're adding to their screen. So, and that's basically all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you being here today. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment. And commissioners, any comments to anything you heard from the public? Commissioner Kennard.
I'll chime in just real quick on a couple of these things. The number of boats launching, he was exactly right. On Sunday, I actually got up about 5:30 because I was putting the boat back on the trailer, and I was at the ramp at about maybe 6:15, and I was 5 deep at that point. Vehicles ahead of me either launching or putting boats back on their trailer. It was that busy already. I thought, I'm going to get ahead of this because I know it's going to be crazy busy, and there's no getting ahead of it unless you're there some crazy hour of the day. The idea of transportation at the ramp from the remote parking on busy days is a great idea. I don't know what's happened with them, but I know that during the height of the COVID vaccine sites, that some COVID money was used by the health department to purchase a couple gators to run back and forth on these large sites out to see those people. What's happening with those things at this point? You know, is that a possibility? If they're sitting in a garage somewhere, do we have the ability to use those to get people back and forth? Because they're exactly right. Once you launch a boat and take it to the other side of the dock and moor it off there, that spot is tied up until that person takes their boat and trailer all the way out down Fort Island Trail or at McCrae's to a remote spot, and then they're walking back or whatever they're doing to get back to their boat, and everything comes to a standstill. So certainly if some transportation was available, that would be an interesting thing to look at for sure.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Not allowed to speak from the audience. Okay.
I hadn't thought about the dock on the opposite side of the ramp at the Fort Island Trail beach ramp. A great idea. Again, you know, if you can get those boats out of the ramp and off to the side moored, so somebody else can be launching, that would certainly help move things along. Never considered cleaning stations either. Another great idea. So, anyway, some good ideas, and cars parking and trailer spaces. I think, don't we have? Randy, do you know if we've got signs up? Can they be ticketed for that? I thought there was a sign up out at Fort Island Trail Beach about not doing that.
I don't know, but Francine may know.
That, you know, then that's something maybe we need to, certainly I will reach out to the sheriff's office and ask them to pay attention to that, because it is a problem, very frustrating, you know, when you launch and you see, you know, a single vehicle parked in a trailer spot. There's other places where they need to be parking. That's all I've got.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comments?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought there were some great ideas, and I love the idea of looking into the Gator equipment that was bought, if that could be utilized. The other thing that, Richard, you mentioned, I am curious to know if Turner Camp is what it's producing, if it's generating some money, and how much. And also attendance. You know, I'm a native Floridian, so I always, you know, have a trigger with the North, you know, coming here and telling us what to do. But, you know, the fees or taxes are a lot higher, and we're trying to keep it low. So if we could get in a happy medium so that we could get attendance there. I've heard that. That's probably the only thing I've really ever heard. It would be nice if there was a live person there saying, okay, come on, you know, let's move it along or that. But I don't know how we would possibly get there without increasing fees. So that's the only comments I have.
Okay. Mr. Davis, anything?
I thought it was a great discussion and some really good ideas. So, and I assume staff will answer the question.
Yeah, well, according to our information, we don't collect at Turner Camp, so I doubt we have any money
there you
coming
go.
in from Turner Camp. Hernando Beach is on our list that we collect at, so I'm sure, I'm sorry, sir, we only take public input one time, and that's it. So, but if you have questions after the meeting, please come up and ask.
I'll see if I can get a breakdown by the ramps we collect from. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, according to the list, we're collecting at 4 ramps, and Hernando Beach is one, but Turner Camp is not.
Okay.
So the other thing is, all good ideas, but we've done this, okay? There is a ready lane if you go down to McCrae's. In the years past, they created an area you pull off to the side to ready your boat to launch it. Also, instead of the county, if we have to hire somebody to man these sites, then the boat ramps fee is going to have to go up, or there's going to be none left over to do projects with, okay? What they did in Homosassa, especially during busy times, is there was a lot of the nonprofit organizations, I believe it was the Homosassa Civic Organization or whatever, that they would make arrangements on people's property, and they would shuttle people from the boat ramp back to their back to where they parked the boat and do that back and forth, and they charged $5 or something, and that money went to their organization. So there's ways of implementing this, but other than volunteers or whatever, and again, at one time, I think the TDC actually in years past funded folks at ramps or whatever to help do that. And again, I don't remember how all that worked out. So yeah, we can do all this. The thing to keep in mind is there's costs associated, and the cost will diminish, anything we take out of this fund will diminish the retained or earnings that's in it. And by the way, folks, I know what you're talking about. I've been a licensed boat captain for, I don't know, since way back when. And what I learned when I moved to Christopher, I actually lived on Christopher on my boat for 6 years, and we never went out on the water on the weekends, never. And the other thing that was fun is on particular nights, particularly 4th of July, we would sit and watch the boat ramp. That's where the fun was at. You know, once the fireworks were over, you just sat and watched the boat ramp, and that's where it all got interesting. And so again, but you're right. You know, the folks that hadn't imbibed too much, they were better mannered going out than they were sometimes coming back, because they probably had one or two many beverages during the day. So anyway. Those are issues that we see. They come into place. You know, you can't legislate good manners, so you ask people to do that. And but the thing I will have to tell you, and the people that I've talked to, and maybe Commissioner Kennard can add something to this, but since we've instituted the boat ramp fees, they've said the behavior and the attendance and the way the boat ramps operate are much, much better. You know, that there's actually, you can actually get to a boat ramp now, and so that, you know, I don't know, maybe the folks that don't want to pay the fee are seeking out the ramps where they don't have to pay, something like that. But, you know, other than the big weekends, if go out on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock on Highway 19, and you know what you see going down the road? Boats on the back of trucks, on trailers going down the road. So if they're not on the water, they're on their way to it. So, all good ideas. I'm sure we will look into it. Mr. Oliver, you have something to add to this?
I just want to mention, we do have boat rangers during season, one at each of the major ramps. I mean, they do a lot of things, so they don't get everywhere, and they're not constantly directing traffic. They help people if they need to register, pay the boat fee, things like that. So we do have those people, and that's been in place for years.
And it was mentioned a couple of times, do you have any insight into the Gator issue? It seems to me if that money was COVID money used for the health department, I don't know how we would, is that something worth looking into, or is that not?
We can get the equipment back. There's quite a significant liability issue, but the other issue is the just the personnel costs, and having volunteers drive something is not necessarily dependable. I mean, I like volunteer groups or things like that that'll do it, but give them the equipment.
One, like I mentioned, in Homosassa, it was all done by volunteers that I know of, and they brought in a lot of money for their organization down there doing that, so maybe others may be interested. But yeah, the last thing I think we want to do is go out and recruit people to drive county-owned equipment up and down the highway, right, Madam Attorney? I'm sure you're really excited about that thought. So. Okay, so we've had open to the public. No further commissioner discussion. Commissioner Kennard, this was all your idea going back when, as you look back on it. No.
Thanks for hanging that anchor around my neck.
Well, no. Okay, I'm going to join you. I'm going to join you, and I'm going to say it died until I resurrected it for you, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you, what now that this is behind us and you say it's the way it's working, what are your thoughts on it? You know, I mean, I know it's work in progress, but I would say my unsolicited opinion is it's working very well, and it's going to be better in the future. What
I agree 100%. I don't know what the exact ratio is, but I get a lot of comments about this issue, just in discussion with other boaters, other fishermen, and if I were to just spitball it, I would say that it's the positive to negative comments are probably 8 or 10 to 1. That people are happy that this is in place, and that the one caveat is make sure the money gets used for what it's supposed to be used for. And I get it. It's a healthy distrust for government. And I believe that we're being as transparent as we could possibly be about it. I've directed many people to the county website to go and see the revenues have been collected, what expenses there have been, and once we get start getting some target projects, those are things that I think, like Commissioner Davis said, that those are things that we need to say. This is on our on the horizon for these projects, And there's some really good things that can happen out there, both initially at the Fort Island Trail ramp, at McCrae's, out at the beach ramp. It sounds like Hernando ramp needs to be addressed, or the docks out there need to be addressed. So there's some really good things can happen, and some successes to point to and say, look, nobody's happy about paying these fees, but having a funding source to make some very nice improvement for boaters is a good thing that you'll be able to look back at from your porch and say, well done. And years down the road, we'll all be able to say, well, we took the arrows for that one, but we've got some good projects done with it.
Well, I'll look back from my porch and say, I'm glad I listened to the wisdom of Commissioner Kennard. That's me. There was another comment that was made, and it had to do, I'm trying to remember what it was, but I was going to give you, I can't remember what it was, but one of the other comments was about, and it escapes me now. But I just do want to mention, if you come up and you speak and you didn't get your questions answered, please, after the meeting, seek out one of the staff members or one of the commissioners and try to get your points made or whatever. So we want to hear what you have to say, but we have to stick within our time frame that we have to work with today. Okay, so with that said, if we have nothing else, Mr. Oliver, anything else for us? Okay, we'll be back here. We're going to have our regular meeting at 1 o'clock today in this same location, so we will adjourn this workshop. Thank you.